Although paintings featuring the lives of the aristocracy were a mainstay in France, in other places, especially as the Rococo starts to fall in popularity in the mid-18th century, other styles that are more critical begin to develop. In England, the artist William Hogarth paints a series of paintings, which are reproduced in very, very popular prints, called Marriage à la Mode, and these mock the dissolute and often immoral lives of the upper classes. Overall, this series of paintings features the marriage of a daughter of a wealthy factory owner, a new industrialist, a new kind of person that you could be in the 18th century, to the broke son of a wealthy lord. She's essentially trading her money for his title. This painting, the breakfast scene, shows the morning after the marriage. And everything about this painting really points to these two figures as dissolute. So if we start with the man over here, he is slumped in his chair. They've been up all night. This is their wedding night, but they were not together. We see, if we look on his neck here, this dark patch. This was a treatment for syphilis or another STD. They didn't work, but they were tried. And if we look down here, we can see that the little dog is sniffing at something in his pocket, which is usually thought to be some other woman's, probably a prostitute's, cap. Likewise, if we look down below that, we can see his sword abandoned on the ground, and it's actually broken here. This both implies he's been dueling, which was illegal and frowned upon by the mid-18th century, but the brokenness of his sword is often interpreted by art historians as a symbol for impotence as well. In contrast, if we look at his wife, her body language is quite provocative. She's not sitting in a very ladylike way here. Her legs are spread, and if we actually look in the center of her skirt right here, we can see a wet stain on her skirt. Again, suggesting that she's had sex with somebody who is probably not her husband. Between them, we see this elaborately decorated mantle, and here again, this calls attention to the fact that they have more money than taste. This doesn't seem particularly out of character to us, but to a modern viewer, they would have recognized that these different kinds of objects on this mantle did not go together, and are simply a demonstration that this couple has money to buy whatever they want. In contrast, if we look at their butler over here on the left-hand side of the painting, he is dressed as a Methodist, so a religious minority, and we show him here with the accounts and the bills in his hand. You'll notice there's one paid bill on the spike, and many unpaid bills in his hands, suggesting that, like many other aristocrats, this couple is living beyond their very substantial means. In the background, we see the footman, and we see around him the mess of the night before that has not been cleaned up, and we see the footman here leaning on a chair, yawning and scratching his head, and basically not getting any work done. And the thought at the time was that as an aristocrat, your job as the head of the household was to set an example for your servants. And we see lots of examples of this in art and literature of the time, that if you didn't behave in a moral and upright way, that servants were easily swayed. They're often represented as somewhat stupid, and that they can be easily led into temptation. So in this case, the footman is following the lead of his masters, and he's lazy, stupid, and unclean. Needless to say, this is a pretty scathing condemnation of the kinds of paintings we're seeing in France. And outside of France, and even as the 18th century progresses within France, we start to see the taste shift to other kinds of painters. The Rubenists are falling out of favor with their exuberant, sensual, and colorful images, and the Poussinnists, with their focus on rules, narrative, and moral, are becoming much more prominent.